This is 5 Live Formula One with Jack Nichols.
It's time for the sprint race ahead of the Emilia Romagna Grand Prix coming up tomorrow afternoon. This is going to be 21 laps of racing, which will decide the grid for the main race tomorrow. Thank you very much for joining us here on Sports Extra or on the Formula One app or on the BBC Sport website, where you can listen to every race in the and every session in the season. Alongside me, we have the Williams development driver and two-time W Series champion Jamie Chadwick. I also have the BBC's chief F1 writer Andrew Benson to give some thoughts. And the grid is thus: Max Verstappen will start on pole position, Charles Leclerc will be alongside him on the front row, Lando Norris third, Kevin Magnussen fourth. The big news is that most of the drivers are starting on the soft tyre, bar Kevin Magnussen in fourth, Mick Schumacher in 12th, so the two Haas drivers, and Nicholas Latifi in the Williams in 18th position. But first of all, Jamie, Max Verstappen, Charles Leclerc, the two title rivals. Leclerc has a huge lead at the championship at the moment. He's on 71 points. Verstappen is on 25. It's important to Verstappen to win this today.
Big time. And unlike last year, there's a lot more points for grabs. I think there's a lot more points for grabs. Correct me if I'm wrong on that. But yeah, there's more points for grabs. So yeah, for Verstappen, who's got a massive deficit to Leclerc in the championship already, today's important, and also the grid for tomorrow is important. So yeah, it's not going to be an easy race for Charles today.
Now, we were wondering what tyres they were going to be starting on. Andrew Benson, everybody's gone on the softs.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. The soft looked like it was reasonably durable over a reasonably long run this morning in the final practice session, and they all will have been mindful of the extra grip that the soft tyre gives them off the line. The only risk for it is that it might sort of fade a little bit towards the end of the race. 21 laps to go, 102.8 kilometres. But if they're all on softs, which they basically are, that's not going to make much difference. So we were talking about Verstappen and Leclerc. Which way would they go, soft and medium? They've both obviously thought they can't afford to take the risk of losing out at the start. They're both on the soft tyre, and so is virtually everyone behind them.
Catherine says, oh wow, Jamie Chadwick on hashtag BBC F1 commentary. This is amazing. Good. Thank you. No one's tweeted that about Andrew Benson as of yet, but we'll wait and see what happens as the session progresses. So 21 laps. It's going to be a slightly longer sprint race in terms of time than we've seen when the races are at Monza, for example, because it's done on distance and it's a slightly slower circuit in terms of average speed. But it's still going to be very, very interesting with Verstappen on pole and Leclerc second. And then behind them, Jamie, it's sort of a bit of a free-for-all because Lando Norris barely did any running in third. Then you got Magnussen in the Haas, Alonso fifth in the Alpine, Ricciardo sixth. He had no running this morning either in the McLaren, and it was all wet running yesterday. Then Perez in seventh and Sainz in 10th. And that is a big sort of risk versus reward afternoon for them, because they've got to make these passes on track.
Definitely. And yeah, the three behind the top two, Norris, Magnussen and Alonso, they're not going to be taking it easy at turn one at all. So I think that potentially is why Verstappen and Leclerc have had their hand forced maybe with the soft tyre. I mean, it was a bit hard to crunch the numbers in practice to know actually which the better performing tyre was for the sprint race. So I'm not sure if that is the favourable choice to last the distance or not. But at the same time, I think they can't take the risk of losing track position because they've got at least 3 or 4 guys behind them that are going to be pushing hard.
On the other hand, we've just had an email from Martin saying Jack Nichols is back. Shame. So there we go. It goes both ways. The cars are on the grid. They're about to have the tyre warmers taken off and be lowered down from the jacks onto the ground. And Max Verstappen on pole position. Now he will be moderately unusually, he will be on the inside for the first corner at Imola. Normally pole position is on the outside on the run down towards turn one, but because turn one is a flat out left kink, it is on the left hand side, so Verstappen will have the inside. So if Leclerc gets a better start around the outside into turn one is a tough one to pull off, or into turn two I should say.
Yeah, I think it's going to be whoever gets the launch off the line, and then obviously slipstream will be a factor if you're in P3 or P4. But yeah, it's going to be interesting. I think track position is key, but the DRS effect is also key. So they need to stay within each other and stay close to have an opportunity to repass later in the race.
3 laps into the sprint, the DRS window will open, and if you're within a second of the car in front, you'll be able to use that DRS. Jamie mentioned about the points earlier on. It's 8 points for a win, 7 points for second place, 6 points for third place, and so on, down to the rest of the top 8. The cars now pull away on the formation lap then, ahead of the sprint, and there's a problem for Alonso. He finally gets going. The whole of the field don't go past him, so he should be able to resume his starting grid slot, but it took him an awful long time, the Spaniard, to pull away from the grid. And this is the full grid. Verstappen on pole, Leclerc second, Norris third, Magnussen fourth in the Haas, Alonso fifth in the Alpine, Daniel Ricciardo sixth in the McLaren, Sergio Perez seventh in the Red Bull, eighth is Valtteri Bottas in the Alfa Romeo, ninth is Sebastian Vettel in the Aston Martin, 10th is Carlos Sainz for the Ferrari, then it is Russell 11th for Mercedes, 12th is Schumacher's Haas, 13th Lewis Hamilton in the Mercedes, Zhou is 14th for Alfa Romeo, Stroll is 15th for Aston Martin, Tsunoda and Gasly, the two Alpha Tauris, are 16th and 17th, 18th Nicholas Latifi, 19th Esteban Ocon, 20th Alex Albon. You can hear the air horns going off around Imola. We're just an hour or so away from Maranello, the home of Ferrari, and the fans are very much out in force, and they want to see Charles Leclerc try and take pole position for the Grand Prix tomorrow, as they now make their way around the top part of the track at Variante Alta, then start to drop down the hill into the two Ravazzas. Quite a pacey formation lap, this, isn't it? Verstappen's giving it some.
Oh, and Alonso just regaining position, there, just as he passes Ricciardo to get back into his grid slot. Yeah, it is a fast formation lap. I think tyre temp, although looking at the track temperature, it's not too low at about 28 degrees. It looks like they're working hard to get some temperatures into those tyres, and I think that's because they know how important and critical this first lap is.
21 laps of racing coming up, half an hour or so to decide the grid for the Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix tomorrow. You can hear the Tifosi on their feet as the cars come past in front of the huge natural grandstands of the hills all the way around this wonderful Imola circuit. It had been off the calendar for a long time before it returned in 2020 and is now becoming something of a more permanent fixture. And Max Verstappen doing some burnouts on his way to the grid, and he lines up in pole position. Leclerc in second, the Mercedes, and everybody, there's so much danger of getting caught up in a tangle on the opening lap because it can basically end your race tomorrow.
Big time, and we've seen in juniors formulas already this weekend and in F1 in previous years, it can get clumsy down at turn 2, 3 and 4, and even the next 5, 6, 7 section is so easy to lose a front wing, and they can't afford to do that in this race. So yeah, hopefully no one trips over each other, but they're all lining up on the grid now, so they should be going green soon.
I think the Alpha Tauri in front of me's brakes are going to catch on fire, so they're both smoking a lot.
So that's Nicholas Latifi saying that the AlphaTauri's brakes are warm, but the track action is about to heat up now, because here come the lights. 21 laps of racing incoming. Verstappen on pole position. Charles Leclerc second in the Ferrari. Norris and Magnussen are on the second row. It's a pretty decent start from Leclerc, and he might take the lead here as they come down towards Tamburello. Perez has got a great start too, and Leclerc hits the front. The Ferrari's in the lead. Norris is coming as well to try and get up into second place, but he's not able to do it. Perez commits to the inside, almost makes contact with Daniel Ricciardo in the other McLaren, but it is Charles Leclerc in the Ferrari who takes the lead of the sprint. Verstappen is still second, Norris is third, fourth is Kevin Magnussen, fifth is Sergio Perez after an incredibly aggressive start from the Mexican. They're side by side as Ricciardo and Alonso try and fight it out through the left-hander of Tosa. Alonso's got a very good run, and they're going to go wheel to wheel up towards Piratella. Alonso might just have the inside line, but Ricciardo's got the legs to pull out in front. But Charles Leclerc has taken the lead. Verstappen is second, Norris is third, Magnussen is fourth, Perez is fifth, then is Ricciardo, Alonso, Sainz, Vettel, Bottas the top 10, and off is Zhou Guanyu in the Alfa Romeo. Zhou is out, and that might be a safety car. He's got front wing damage and rear wing damage, and the safety car is deployed. I wonder who he's tangled with in there, because he was starting just behind Hamilton on the grid, and he's made a bit of a mess of that one, Zhou Guanyu. But Leclerc takes the lead, and his getaway was perfect. Verstappen, slow getaway, and then seemingly a load of wheel spin.
Yeah, perfect start for Leclerc there. Couldn't have asked for much more, and got a good gap, to be honest, before that safety car. Exactly what he needed to do. Unfortunately, I think, it looks like Joe must have tangled with Gasly there.
Yeah, there's damage on the front right of Pierre Gasly's car, so he'll be coming into the pits to get a repair on that job. Coming up through Piratella, and it was an unfortunate one. Joe was on the outside, Gasly on the inside. 50-50, really.
Like I said, clumsy, 50-50, didn't need to happen. I don't think Joe quite knew how close Gasly was there, but that's a lot of damage for Joe and the Alpha team to repair now, and it'd be lucky, I think, to not have any drivetrain issues there as well.
Yeah, what the... Of course, he can't stay there.
And that's Gasly getting frustrated after that collision, and Joe spun back across the track and then hit the concrete wall with the rear of the car, so that's why there might be some issues. So this is the order behind the safety car: Leclerc, Verstappen, Norris, Magnussen and Perez, the top 5. Ricciardo, Alonso, Sainz has made up 2 places, then Vettel in 9th and Bottas in 10th. Schumacher is 11th, Russell has dropped down to 12th, 13th is Tsunoda, so that's a quick start from him. Stroll 14th, Hamilton's lost out and is down to 15th, so that's 2 places lost off the start for Hamilton. Ocon 16th, Latifi 17th, Albon 18th. Gasly's been through the pits for repairs. Joe is out of the race, but Perez was impressive.
Perez was impressive
on that opening lap.
He was. He did really well to fight his way through. To be honest, Magnussen was the one that looked like he was struggling with tyre temps. Obviously, on the medium tyre, we saw him trying to weave and warm the tyres up a bit more. So he was vulnerable, but he did a great job to get past Ricciardo at that time.
Yeah, and it was a really, really clean start. And I'm from Charles Leclerc. I wondered for a moment if Norris was going to get there as well, but
Max does really well here. He's got Norris alongside him, and he brakes really nicely and deep and manages to fend him off. But I think, Norris's initial launch was as good as you're going to get. I think it's just, it was a bit tentative down into turn 2.
I don't know how Perez kept his... this is the sound on board with the Verstappen at the start.
Just a bit too much wheel spin.
Lovely gear sync, huh?
So that's lovely gear sync, that says Verstappen. It bogged down and then the wheels just spun for 10 or 20 metres it felt there.
Yeah, you can hear his shift from first to second and second to third just wasn't what he wanted, and he probably felt that's what gave him more wheel spin than he needed at that time.
Starts actually haven't been a strong point of Red Bull recently. There's really a weakness that they've got to work on, as well as the reliability, obviously, which has put Verstappen on the back foot. And now he's looking at, it's only a 2-point swing if he stays in second place behind Leclerc, if he can't get past at the restart, whenever that is. But it's another 2 points potentially that he's just shipped in the championship from that.
I don't know how Perez didn't lose his front wing here at Tamburello, because he sent it up the inside of 2 cars. They both turn in, and there's contact, I think, between all 3 of them. The front right of Perez hit the rear right of Ricciardo. The front right of Ricciardo hit the rear left of Magnussen, but they just all survived.
And Daniel Ricciardo's sort of stuck in the middle of it, nowhere really to go. So I think they're all lucky to escape that without any damage. Perez obviously got the most lucky with it, getting up into 5th, but yeah, Ricciardo, I think, will be a bit frustrated that he had nowhere to go there, really.
Still behind the safety car. They are just now, they've got the Alfa Romeo of Joe up on the back of a digger, and they are just taking it to an exit point. I doubt we will get the safety car in this lap, but only one more maximum, I would suggest, as Joe's Alfa is returned. Hamilton dropping 2 places at the start. Tough for him because obviously forwards is the progress he's looking for.
Exactly, he really needs to try and make some forward moves now. It's difficult when you're back there because it's kind of past or be past, I think, when you're in the middle to the back of the field, and that's not where he wants to be. But given the pace of the Mercedes and the dry conditions, what we saw earlier today, he's got to make moves and he's got to press up the field now. George up into P12. I'd find it bizarre if he doesn't stay there, or if he stays there, I'd imagine he'll get his way up into the top 10 before we know it.
Yeah, he's going to be first attacking Mick Schumacher in the Haas, who's on medium tyres. He gained a few places at the start, did Schumacher, and then it is Russell 12th, Tsunoda 13th, 14th Stroll, 15th Hamilton, and Joe's car is now removed, so hopefully this will be the final lap behind the safety car, and then we will get going again. Lap 4 of 21. We're just getting the replay of Joe's accident on board with Joe, and he went around the outside and
not enough room, I don't think. It's unfortunate.
Man, being hit. What is going on, man?
And he was kind of behind Gasly going into the corner, so it's not like Gasly's centre.
He knew he was there. Yeah. Unfortunately, there's enough room for a car to be there, but in a high-speed corner like that, you've got to give a little bit more room. And Gasly's got nowhere to go in that instance. He'll rightly be very frustrated with that.
Yeah, a bit of an experience there. I think Pirotell is an extremely fast corner. It's not normally an overtaking place, and he shouldn't have been putting himself in that position, in my opinion.
There was a little bit of contact from Mick Schumacher on the rear right of Valtteri Bottas's Alfa Romeo, in which Schumacher's lucky not to get a bit of damage, and also Bottas maybe a bit lucky not to get a puncture. They both made it through there. So the top 10, as we're about to get racing back underway: Leclerc, Verstappen, Norris, Magnussen, Perez, the top 5. Ricciardo, Alonso, Sainz, Vettel, Bottas, the top 10. Lights are off on the safety car. Leclerc about to do the safety car restart. They have clarified some of the safety car restart rules after Max Verstappen was pulling up alongside Charles Leclerc at times during, it was Saudi Arabia in particular, wasn't it, where Verstappen was pulling right level with Leclerc. Not allowed to do that anymore. When is Leclerc going to drop it?
He's going to leave it right to the last minute, I think. I think the long straight leaves you open if he goes too early, unless he can get the sort of launch off of Max in these last few corners. I think he's got to leave it really late, which is what we've seen many times before, but it'll be interesting to see where he tries to get him.
So they're coming into the first left-hander at Ravazza now. There he goes, right at the start of the first Ravazza, and it's a reasonable getaway from Leclerc. Magnussen is pretty close to the back of Lando Norris. Racing underway once again in Imola in the sprint ahead of tomorrow's Emilia Romagna Grand Prix, and Leclerc's got a decent getaway. He's half a second ahead of Verstappen as they come into the first chicane at Tamburello. Then there's a bit of a gap back to Lando Norris in the McLaren, who's doing his first laps of the day really at racing speed. Big moment for Alonso, and that's going to allow Carlos Sainz the opportunity to try and attack the Spaniard. He goes to the outside coming into the Villeneuve chicane, won't be able to pull that one off, and Alonso just about manages to get away with that one, but that was a huge snap on the exit of Tamburello.
Yeah, he just nibbled the curb and it awfully unsettled the car, but those are the opportunities Carlos needs to be taking. He needs to make progress through this field to get onto terms with at least the top 3.
And that has now dropped Alonso more than a second back from Daniel Ricciardo. So Leclerc leading, a second back to Verstappen in second, then a couple of seconds back to Norris in third position. They're coming down to the bottom of the hill at Acqua Minerale and then climbing up once more. Variante Alta, the high chicane, is where Leclerc is already pulling away from Verstappen at the moment. And then there's that gap back, and Alonso a little bit wide again on the exit of Variante Alta. He's under quite a lot of pressure here from Carlos Sainz. No progress made by either of the Mercedes. Russell still in 12th place. Hamilton still in 15th position. And just getting a replay of Kevin Magnussen, who...
This was on lap 1. Yeah, I saw this. He was warming his tyres, but it was just a bit too close to Perez, in my opinion. Perez was a bit too close to him to be doing that. So he's been given a black and white for that weaving, but no harm done of it at this stage.
Okay, so he wasn't necessarily weaving to break the toe or keep the car behind. It was more a tyre thing.
It looked to be. But yeah, Leclerc's already managed to get just under a second away from Verstappen, so already DRS, when it becomes available, Max won't have the use of. So that's exactly what Leclerc needs to be doing at this stage of the race. And if he can get his head down, get out of DRS, he's going to give himself the best chance of not being attacked in this race.
Alonso again just a little bit loose coming out of Tosa. Looks like he's right on the edge with that Alpine at the moment as he tries to hold on to 7th place ahead of the Ferrari of Carlos Sainz. Leclerc gaining a place at the start, Perez gaining 2, Sainz gaining 2. The biggest winner was Yuki Tsunoda gaining 3 places up into 13th position. Hamilton losing 2 spots, so did Alonso. He got a lot of wheel spin at the start, and that's where he dropped back as they now come down the hill once more into Ravazza. Still 1 second between Leclerc and Verstappen as they come out of the final corner out across the line. What is the gap going to be this time? It's still 1.088 seconds, so 15 laps to go, and Leclerc is just staying far enough ahead of Verstappen for the time being. Sainz has got a good opportunity here on Alonso. He's got a very good run. No DRS yet, but he's got an excellent slipstream, Carlos Sainz. That Ferrari, quick in a straight line, goes to the outside, and he goes right around the outside at Tamburello. Nice move that from Carlos Sainz. Gets around his compatriot, and he is now up into 7th place.
Yeah, perfectly executed that. Used the slipstream nicely, and did a lovely job of that. Now he needs to try and get his head down, see what pace he's got, and get onto terms with Daniel Ricciardo.
Lewis Hamilton is 0.6 of a second behind Lance Stroll currently. That gap has actually just extended a little, so he's not able to make much progress. George Russell is half a second off the back of Mick Schumacher, but it's all very tight up there. The closest fight really is Magnussen and Perez at the moment. Perez just 0.4 back from Kevin Magnussen as they come up the hill towards the Variante Alta, onto the brakes, into the right, over the curbs, into the left, over the curbs, and this is going to be a really good opportunity, I think, for Sergio Perez to make this move, and if he can get back up into 4th place, that's going to be a really solid effort in only the first 7 laps. Leclerc sets the fastest lap of the Grand Prix and moves to 1.4 seconds ahead of Max Verstappen. Obviously it's not a Grand Prix, he sets the fastest lap of the sprint and moves to 1.4 seconds ahead of Verstappen. Is this going to be an opportunity for Perez? Here it comes, and wow, the closing speed, the slipstream and the DRS, and he breezes past Magnussen. So the race order now: Charles Leclerc in the lead, Max Verstappen 2nd, Lando Norris 3rd, Sergio Perez 4th, Kevin Magnussen 5th, Daniel Ricciardo 6th, 7th is Carlos Sainz, 8th is Fernando Alonso, 9th Sebastian Vettel, 10th is Valtteri Bottas. Outside the top 10, Schumacher, Russell, Tsunoda, Hamilton, Stroll. Hamilton's got Stroll then on that last lap. Hamilton's got ahead of Lance Stroll, then Ocon in 16th, Albon 17th, Latifi 18th, 19th, Gasly, Zhou out of the race. And that was a fairly straightforward move in the end for Sergio Perez.
Yeah, just watching that move of Perez on Magnussen back, I think as soon as the DRS comes into play and there's a slipstream effect as well, it's almost impossible to fight it into turn 2. So yeah, very strong effect of the DRS here this weekend.
Valtteri Bottas quite close to the back of Sebastian Vettel now up at the Variante Alta. They've dropped back a little from Fernando Alonso, who's in 8th place, and might be able to have a run here as they come down the hill across the line, and Leclerc's margin is 1.2 seconds, so Verstappen gained 0.2 on Leclerc on that previous lap. That aforementioned battle between Vettel and Bottas out over the start-finish straight, and Bottas is going to have a very good opportunity here into Tamburello. Again, he's got the DRS. Vettel covers the inside, Bottas to the outside, and it's a straightforward overtake for Bottas in the Alfa Romeo, so he now climbs up into 9th place, and soon Mick Schumacher might be fancying a look at Sebastian Vettel, because that Aston Martin isn't particularly quick in dry conditions. Maybe outperformed the car a little yesterday in qualifying, Vettel.
Definitely, I think those mixed conditions perhaps flattered the car a little bit, so yeah, now it's going to be hard for them to fight off where their position or their natural position is. And what I'm interested in is the Haas. Both Haas's are on the medium tyres and seem to have quite a lot of pace with that, so if there is any tyre degradation in this race, albeit only 11 or 12 laps left, I think the Haas's are going to be in prime position for that.
That safety car will have helped those that are on the soft tyre to just give them a little bit more life over the course of the sprint. We're on that 9 of 21, so we're approaching half race distance now, and there's a bit of a queue forming behind Kevin Magnussen, so his pace is all right at the moment, but he's got Ricciardo only about 0.6 behind, and then Carlos Sainz, who's very close to the back of Ricciardo, so this is going to be a tricky one for Magnussen to hold on to here. They come over the start-finish straight. The sound you can hear is the Ferrari engine of Carlos Sainz closing in on Ricciardo. Ricciardo's closing in on Magnussen, a little bit too far away at the moment. Sainz very late on the brakes. We're on that 10 of 21 in the sprint race that determines the grid for tomorrow's Formula 1 Grand Prix at Imola. Myself, Jack Nicholls, W Series champion Jamie Chadwick, and the BBC's chief F1 writer Andrew Benson with you for coverage. We'll all be back tomorrow as well for the Grand Prix that is going to be another Leclerc versus Verstappen battle. At the moment, Leclerc leads. He's 1.3 seconds ahead of Verstappen, so that gap about the same. They both did, well, Verstappen did a personal best on that last lap. Leclerc has just taken 0.2 out of Verstappen in the middle sector, so it's a real chase game up at the front, but Magnussen is going to be under a lot of pressure for that 5th place from Ricciardo and Sainz here.
And he's got no one in front of him to punch a hole in the air either. He's going to be a bit of a sitting duck in the straight, I think, and it helps Carlos as well, because he's been dragged right into this battle. So I'll be amazed if Ricciardo, with his late braking, moves into turn 2, won't have an easy job of it this time round.
through the second Ravazza. Out onto the start-finish straight. Magnussen in 5th, but here comes Ricciardo now, and Sainz also. Sainz is going to get a double toe. Ricciardo is a little bit further away. Perez has just got ahead of Norris, so Sergio Perez has just got up into 3rd place, so that kind of came out of nowhere. Here comes Ricciardo to the inside at Tamburello, and he makes it through. So Ricciardo is now up into 5th position. Sergio Perez in the Red Bull into 3rd spot. Norris down to 4th. Then it's 5th for Ricciardo in the other McLaren. Magnussen in the Haas is down to 6th. 7th is Sainz. 8th is Alonso. 9th is Bottas. 10th is Sebastian Vettel. Sainz has a little nose to the inside into Tosa, but good drive this from Sergio Perez to be up into 3rd place. Andrew Benson.
And that's exactly what Red Bull wanted to see. They want both their cars up at the front of the grid against one Ferrari tomorrow in an ideal world for them, so they can play strategic games. Didn't work out for them in Australia because Leclerc just had too much pace, but if they're evenly matched on pace, that could end up with Red Bull snookering Ferrari in the Grand Prix. So the pressure now on Sainz to get up to be sort of in the just right, basically 4th is where he is aiming for by the end of this race. It's quite an ask with him in 7th place at the moment.
Fifth is possibly doable. 6th is going to be doable on this lap, I would have thought, as we've got 10 laps to go. Sainz on the brakes into the first Ravazza. Up a couple of gears. And then you can hear the Tifosi cheering Sainz on as he closes in on Magnussen here. Magnussen doesn't have DRS, so this should be the move for the Ferrari. Magnussen to the inside, Sainz to the outside, and he gains another place, up into 6th position. Alonso's also fighting off Valtteri Bottas as they come into Tamburello. He manages to keep Bottas at bay for the time being. Alonso in 8th, Bottas in 9th, Vettel in 10th. Schumacher is only a 10th behind Vettel, actually, as they come over the start-finish straight towards Tamburello, and Schumacher not able to make the move this time around, but it's very close there between Vettel, Schumacher, Russell, Tsunoda, Hamilton, all in a queue. Perez's move on Norris came down the start-finish straight with the DRS and breezed past the McLaren to get up into that 3rd position as he then turned into the left-right of Tamburello. So Charles Leclerc leads the race. He's 1.5 seconds now ahead of Max Verstappen. He did the fastest lap of the race on that last lap. Perez actually was 2/10 quicker than Verstappen on that last lap, but Verstappen is still in the dirty air of Leclerc, and at the moment Verstappen doesn't seem to have an answer.
Not enough. It's like he's just there, but not quite enough to make any big inroads on Charles. And it's 3/10 is what he needs. As soon as he gets within that second, he'll get DRS, and that will give him a fighting chance. But yeah, Charles is just holding him at that kind of 3/4 difference, so he can just keep him out of DRS. And at the moment, drive quite a clean race, and I think he's quite comfortable, to be honest. I think every time Max looks like he closes in a little bit, Charles responds straight away. So it doesn't look like any dramas going on at the moment in Ferrari.
Hamilton right behind Yuki Tsunoda, and he's got ahead of Lance Stroll a few laps ago, and I don't think he's got ahead of Tsunoda just quite yet as Hamilton. It's very close between the two of them. It's close really from well, actually Alonso is now right on the back of Kevin Magnussen, so that's happened very quickly. Magnussen sliding back a little bit through the field after looking fairly solid in 5th place earlier on. He's now got Fernando Alonso within DRS range, and then there's that queue from Vettel, Schumacher, Russell, Tsunoda, Hamilton, all within a second of one another in the fight over 10th place and downwards. No points for the top 10. It's the top 8 who get the point this time around, but grid positions for the Grand Prix tomorrow. Leclerc across the line to start lap 14 of 21. The gap goes up a little bit more to 1.7 seconds. So finding a 10th or so a lap here, Charles Leclerc on Max Verstappen. Sainz is only half a second away from Daniel Ricciardo as they come across the line down towards Tamburello. The Ferrari driver to the inside, Ricciardo on the outside, gets up on the curb through that first corner, but Sainz makes the move. He's now into 5th place, but he's 5 seconds back from Norris with 8 laps to go. That's a tall order.
It's a big ask, but I think if he can get his head down, get out of DRS from Ricciardo, then consolidate 5th, which, considering where he started down in 10th, is damage limitation. But as Andrew said, with Red Bull up in 2nd and 3rd, that gives them quite a lot of authority potentially on the strategy tomorrow.
Lap 14 of 21. Magnussen still under pressure from Alonso, but not quite under Alonso hasn't had a go just yet, but he might be very soon because he's very close as they come into the Variante Outer. Vettel is defending vigorously too on the exit of Aqua Minerali, and he has got Mick Schumacher right behind him. Lap 15 of 21. Solid race this from Schumacher. Fastest lap of the race goes to Sergio Perez. He's very in the groove today. He looked quick in practice earlier on the long runs, and he's got some good speed here.
Yeah, he's definitely out of position, isn't he, given what happened yesterday in qualifying. So, yeah, he's got the bit between his teeth. He's showing good pace, but that's so key for Red Bull, having that sort of second and third grid position tomorrow.
Here comes Bottas trying to attack Fernando Alonso. You would, based on prior knowledge, you would suggest Bottas is going to find it tough to get ahead of Alonso. Schumacher has got Vettel and up into 10th place. So Mick Schumacher ahead of Sebastian Vettel. George Russell will be the next driver to try and get ahead of the Aston Martin and up into 11th position. Verstappen was 3/10 quicker than Leclerc on that last lap. So Verstappen now maybe starting to push. Here's Magnussen's radio.
Okay, here's the time when the tyres will start to come back to us. So everyone else is going to start dropping off.
So that's Magnussen's engineer saying, right, we started on the mediums, different to everybody else, but this is where it should come back towards us a little bit. And they wouldn't have wanted that safety car in the early stages because that kind of took away some of their advantage.
A little bit, and with 6 laps to go, I'm not sure if that strategy's fallen into their hands quite as well as they would have liked, but yeah, I'm happy to be proved wrong on that. Now Schumacher's got ahead of Vettel. It's nice just to be able to see what pace he can offer.
Yeah, he's 4.4 seconds back from the Magnussen-Alonso-Bottas fight, and in fact here comes Bottas. Surely he's going to get Alonso this time. He is. He moves to the inside. Bottas, Alonso a bit loose coming out of Ravazza. They're side by side, both have the DRS open, but Bottas has the inside line coming into Tamburello. Alonso late on the brakes, and Bottas makes the move. So that is now 8th place for Bottas. Alonso down to 9th. Magnussen still holding on in 7th position. He'll be looking in his mirrors and be fairly satisfied with that. Verstappen, though, has got the lead at the front down to just 1 second, his deficit to Charles Leclerc. Still outside of DRS range, but, well, as I say that, he's not. It's less than a second as they come up through the Variante Outer, now dropping down towards Ravazza. Maybe Verstappen has just been biding his time and looking after his tyres a little, because he's now 8/10 back as they come out over the start-finish straight. He'll have DRS this time around, Max Verstappen, as they exit the double left-hander and come down towards Tamburello. A little bit too far back, but with 5 laps to go, Verstappen looks as though he is putting the attack on down towards the first left-right chicane. Gets to within half a second, but isn't quite close enough to make the move. Has Verstappen just been biding his time?
I was wondering if Leclerc had made a mistake, but I just looked at the sectors and he's doing green sectors now, so he's definitely been saving his tyres a little bit, and he's going to put the pressure on Leclerc. Leclerc's caught my bluff there because I thought he always had something in hand, so now the DRS is a factor. It's going to be very hard for Charles to get that gap unless he can get it back over a second now.
Yeah, there's just 6/10 between them as they climb up the hill. They've come through the quick sequence of corners at the first chicanes and now through Piratella, and Verstappen is able to stay with the Ferrari. So the Ferrari of Leclerc leads. We're only talking about a 2-point swing technically, 1 point the difference. Here's Verstappen's radio.
5 laps remain, including this one. I think Leclerc showing some graining on the front right.
So Verstappen being told that Leclerc's got a bit of graining. Wasn't too neat coming through the Variante Outer. Maybe not the best exit, but he's going to be closer this lap than he was last lap. There's just 6/10 between them. Onto the brakes, through the first left, then out through the second left, and into the DRS straight. The Tifosi are clapping Leclerc on, but maybe with a little less vigour and a little more nerves, because Verstappen is closing as they come towards the first chicane at Tamburello. Leclerc has the advantage at the moment. Verstappen maybe a little too far back this time, but the pressure is going to be on for these final 4 laps if Leclerc wants to win the sprint and start on pole for the Emilia Romagna Grand Prix tomorrow. And it's another race where we're having a big slide from Verstappen. He's on it here.
Yeah, I was going to say Leclerc visibly looks more vulnerable now. He's struggling with those tyres. They've mentioned the front right graining, which is only going to get worse and worse. So if Verstappen has an opportunity, he's going to be able to pounce. And yeah, that DRS is really bringing him to play every time he gets to that main straight.
Half a second between them as they come down into Aqua Minerali, the double right-hander at at the lowest point on the circuit, and then up the hill towards Variante Alta. Verstappen is really close. I don't think Leclerc is going to have to work very hard to try and defend this as they come out of the chicane at the top of the hill.
Leclerc is very good in the last chicane and the last two corners, which just gives him enough of a buffer to seemingly hold Max off. But yeah, if Max can get onto him a little bit closer, he needs to be within half a second going onto the back straight, I think, to have a chance of making a good move into turn 1.
7/10 through there, a bit of a slide for Verstappen as he came out of the first Ravazza. 3 laps to go, and the sound you can hear is Verstappen. He's closing in on the back of Leclerc. Is he going to get there in time at this chicane? I don't think he is, but Leclerc knows he's close and has a big slide coming through the first chicane, and Verstappen will be close even coming into the Villeneuve chicane. The next left-right flick, not really an overtaking opportunity, but this is big pressure now for Leclerc to try and deal with. Sainz, meanwhile, has caught Lando Norris, the Ferrari to the inside, and gets up into 4th place. Carlos Sainz then in the Ferrari, up into 4th position, but with 2.5 laps to go, Verstappen is so close to the back of Leclerc now. This looks like an almost impossible scenario for the Ferrari driver to hold on. Down towards Aqua Minerale. Russell's got ahead of Vettel. So George Russell in the Mercedes up into 11th.
Left-hand toggle is available if you need a bit.
No, just leave me to it. Just leave me to it.
Leave me to it is the message. There's less than 4 tenths between them as they come through the chicane at the top of the hill and now down towards Ravazza. These are the 2 crucial left-handers for Leclerc to get right.
And he's closer than ever now, so I reckon this is as close as he's ever been. He needed a couple more tenths onto that back straight the lap before, and now it looks like he's there. He's half a second. He's a little bit of a slide on the last corner, but as soon as the DRS opens, I think he's going to close that gap.
Penultimate lap of the sprint. Verstappen is 6 tenths back as they come across the line, but he is closing here on the Ferrari. They're going to go side by side into Tamburello. Leclerc keeps it on the inside. Verstappen goes right around the outside and gets the job done. A brilliant, clean move from Max Verstappen to get ahead and take the lead of the sprint. Really, they were side by side going into that chicane, and Verstappen did the job on the brakes. That was not a drive-by DRS pass. That was brilliant.
No, Leclerc visibly looked not so confident on the brakes there to go side by side in the braking zone with Verstappen, but I think he played it smart. He knows the bigger picture. No point in bashing wheels today. He's not got the pace. He's visibly dropped away straight away. So smart driving from Leclerc, but he'll be very frustrated with that.
Yuki Tsunoda has now got ahead of Sebastian Vettel and up into 12th place. Leclerc covered the inside, but Verstappen had the speed, he had the DRS, and he just had the confidence as well. Like, it was nailed to perfection. There was no chance of him sailing straight on through the gravel or anything like that.
No, perfectly executed move, and just so much more confidence than Leclerc visibly seems to have at the moment. So exactly what Verstappen needed to do, and just at the right point of the race as well. Saved it till the end, but it's going to give them a lot of confidence going into tomorrow.
A lap and a half to go. Max Verstappen, who started on pole position, has taken the lead. In fact, not a lap and a half. He is now on the final lap, Max Verstappen, and he's already built up 1.5 seconds to Leclerc, who knows that the game is up. Still fights throughout the rest of the field. Perez is 3rd, Carlos Sainz 4th, Norris 5th, Ricciardo 6th, Bottas 7th.
Does not have DRS.
Mate, please do not talk in the braking.
And that's Verstappen getting frustrated that his engineer's talking to him during the braking zone. Ricciardo 6th, Bottas 7th, Magnussen is 8th, 9th is Fernando Alonso, Mick Schumacher is 10th, Russell is 11th, Tsunoda is in 12th place, Vettel 13th. Is Hamilton going to get Vettel on this final lap? Because to start the Grand Prix 1 position lower than he started the sprint would not work out very well for Lewis Hamilton. The problem he has is Vettel has DRS from Tsunoda in front of him, so that's going to make it really, really tough for Hamilton, and he think he's just gone through his last overtaking opportunity. But here now comes Max Verstappen down towards the final double left-hander at Ravazza. Took pole position yesterday in wet, tricky conditions. There were question marks over who would have the fastest car in the dry. Max Verstappen Verstappen has suggested that Red Bull are in a very strong position. The checkered flag falls. Verstappen wins the sprint and will start on pole position for the Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix tomorrow. It's second across the line for Charles Leclerc. Only needed the race to be a couple of laps shorter and he might have had it. It's third for Sergio Perez, who came through from 7th on the grid. Fourth for Carlos Sainz, who came through from 9th on the grid. Norris is going to be 5th in the McLaren. 6th is going to be the other McLaren of Daniel Ricciardo. Bottas 7th. 8th for Kevin Magnussen. 9th for Fernando Alonso. And 10th for Mick Schumacher. Russell will start 11th on the grid. Tsunoda will start 12th. Vettel 13th. Hamilton 14th. Stroll 15th. Ocon, Gasly, Albon and Latifi, the 19 drivers. Well, that's going to give Verstappen and Red Bull a lot of confidence for the Grand Prix tomorrow.
That's it, right?
That's it. Well done. Pole position for tomorrow.
Lovely. I didn't hear anything, so I don't know.
Yeah, that's it. Well done, mate.
And look how much time Perez took out of Leclerc on that last lap. He ended up 1.7 away, and I think with 3 laps to go, it's about 6 seconds or 5 seconds. So, yeah, Red Bull are going to be very confident going into tomorrow. Obviously, Ferrari need to have a little look as to what happened with Leclerc, because Sainz still showed some good pace. But, yeah, whether it's that front graining, I'll be a bit worried if I was then going into tomorrow.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see whether they change their strategy for tomorrow in terms of maybe starting on the mediums now that they know that Verstappen will be on pole position. Here's Leclerc's radio.
Well, we had a little bit too much degradation. Not stretch, not where we expected to have legs, so it's okay. Let's see tomorrow.
Okay, so Leclerc saying, well, seeming to be a little surprised by the degradation that he had. The team reporting it was or Red Bull anyway, was suggesting it was front right graining, and actually the front right does look a bit churned up. I was going to say, I was
just looking at that front right and it doesn't look happy. And graining's the worst thing, because as soon as you get it, you can't really clear it up, and if someone else doesn't have it, you're immediately going to be vulnerable. So it's a bit of a harder one to explain. Perhaps it was warm-up related. I'm not too sure. I think they'll crunch the numbers tonight and try and redeem themselves for tomorrow, because I think they'll be frustrated that despite the perfect getaway, they weren't able to translate that into a pole position for tomorrow.
So Verstappen winning the sprint, climbs out of the car, went around the outside of Leclerc at the first corner, or the second corner. You do get the feeling if that were the Grand Prix, Leclerc's fighting that a bit more into the chicane.
100%. I think he was smart there. But I'm looking at Max's tyres, and it doesn't look like he's had any graining. Maybe some degradation, maybe thermal degradation, but definitely no graining. So, in comparison to Leclerc there, even if he tried to fight it more, he probably didn't have the tyres for it. So that's going to be frustrating and hurt a little bit today.
Well, an entertaining sprint, that one. Make sure you join us for the Grand Prix tomorrow. Jamie Chadwick, the Williams development driver and W Series champion, alongside me, Jack Nicholls, Andrew Benson and Jenny Gow for the broadcast tomorrow. We're going to hear from our top 3 in a moment or two. Andrew Benson, any thoughts and feelings after that?
Well, it's a concern for Ferrari on one level, but bear in mind that they did this race on the soft tyre, and the soft tyre is unlikely to be used in the Grand Prix tomorrow. I suspect that'll be run on the medium and the hard. So this is not necessarily, could be, but not necessarily an indicator of what's going to happen in the Grand Prix. It wouldn't be the same sort of situation.
What a race! What a race! Tell me, first of all, about your start. Why? It was so poor.
My start was not very good, but because afterwards we had quite a few pace. It took a while to try to put the pressure on, but I think we were a bit better on our tires at the end of the race. So then I could get in the DRS, and we had a good fight into turn 2. But it was fast, pushing quite a bit.
E ragazzi, questo è Verstappen, guarda che atmosfera, gran bella gara, very well done. Charles, scusa se ti disturbo, guarda che bello, volevo solo dirvi, fantastica l'atmosfera.
So Davide Valsecchi is chatting to the Italian fans and Charles Leclerc, and I think we might be hearing from him in a moment with Naomi Schiff instead of Davide by the looks of things. So I think Davide has got, in a shocking turn of events, Davide's got a bit excited and gone barreling in to do those interviews. Verstappen, Perez and Charles Leclerc all just having a little bit of a chat after after that. And then I think, hopefully, we'll be hearing from Leclerc and Perez in a few moments' time. But Perez and Sainz did exactly the jobs that were required of them to get up into third and fourth, respectively. We're going to get a little podium ceremony with the medals. We're going to see the medals then handed out.
Here we go.
Jean Alesi gives Sergio Perez his third place medal. Jean Alesi, a Ferrari driver in, well, I've committed to this now, I want to say 94 and 95. Did he just have 2 years with Ferrari, Jean Alesi, Andrew? 94 and 95, Alesi?
No, because he went there in 91 with Alain Prost.
Oh, what? So he was there 91 all the way through to 95?
Until he left to go to Benetton in 96, yeah.
Oh, I didn't realise that. Anyway, we don't need to get bogged down in the career of Jean Alesi. Charles Leclerc receives his medal for second place. And Max Verstappen has a little high five with Jean. One of only 2 drivers to win a Grand Prix on their birthday, when he won the 1995 Canadian Grand Prix, and it is the winner's medal for Max Verstappen. Alesi grabs Verstappen's hand and holds it aloft like he's just won a boxing match.
I'm just about to say, it's a bit boxing-esque, isn't it? It's a cross between the Olympic ceremony and boxing. I can't quite put a finger on it.
And that is the F1 sprint. Can't quite put a finger on it. Right, we are now going to hear from the drivers. Naomi Schiff is going to be talking to them, and let's hear from Max again.
Congratulations. It's not the start you would have wanted, but you managed to turn it around. Talk us through it.
Yeah, the start was very bad. I don't know exactly what happened or why it was so bad. Just too much wheel spin. But after that, we had to stay calm. And it initially looked like Charles was actually having a bit more pace. But then I think he ran out of tires, and we could close the gap and go for the move into turn 2. I know maybe tomorrow it might be again a bit different, but for sure today it worked out for us to be on this compound. So very happy to have a clean sprint race at the end.
Well, you were able to keep the pressure on Charles all race long, and you showed that these cars can follow a lot better than they used to be able to. Will you have to be looking over your shoulder tomorrow?
Well, if I make a start like today, for sure. But let's see tomorrow. I'm of course happy about today, but I know that tomorrow, with those other tire compounds coming into play, it might be a bit different. But we had a good day.
Well, despite what happened today, you had great starts here in the history. So good luck tomorrow.
Thank you.
Charles, congratulations. It obviously started a lot better for you than it ended, but it's still front row start tomorrow. Talk us through the race today.
Yeah, it's still a front row start. It's we struggled with the tires at the end, so we need to analyze that for tomorrow. At the end, the main race is tomorrow, and we need to make sure that we are ready. But the pace was good until then. Then we started to have some graining on the front left and lost it towards the end. But it's life. We'll work and come back stronger tomorrow.
So now, you may not be able to hear it, but we definitely heard the support that's in the crowd here for you. So maybe you can take this opportunity to share the love back with them.
Yeah, it's incredible. Every time we are in Italy, we have so much support, and it's amazing to see so many people in the grandstand. E speriamo che domani sia un'altra fine. Grazie mille a tutti, ragazzi.
Thanks, Charles. Sergio, great race today. You certainly proved that it is possible to overtake on this track. What did you take out from the race today?
Yeah, I think it was important to minimize qualifying from yesterday. It was the red flags out there. Really, we did struggle a lot with that, so we didn't put a lap together when it mattered. But today we managed to recover, and I think we are in a great position for the fight tomorrow.
Well, you're starting third on the grid tomorrow with Max first. How much can you make a team effort tomorrow to maximize the points tomorrow?
Yeah, it will be ideal, to get a 1-2. That will be great for us, but probably not for the Tifosi. But we will try.
Good luck.
So that was the top 3 speaking to Naomi Schiff. Max Verstappen starts on pole position for the Emilia Romagna Grand Prix tomorrow. Charles Leclerc in second, Sergio Perez third, Sainz fourth, fifth Fernando Norris. The 2 Mercedes will start, Russell in 11th and Hamilton in 14th. We're going to record the Checker Flag podcast. If you want to listen to that later, or maybe tomorrow morning, then please feel free to do so. The race gets off at 2 o'clock tomorrow in the UK, so make sure you join us for it. For those of you on the BBC Sport website and the F1 app, thank you very much for listening. For those of you here on Sports Extra, we will return you to the cricket.